Welcome to the 16th episode of our show, The Second Sex, where we explore Simone de Beauvoir's groundbreaking work and its lasting impact on feminist thought.
And today, we're really diving deep, aren't we?
We are. We're plunging into a truly formative period she dissects. Chapter 3, Sexual Initiation. This is from the Formative Years section of The Second Sex.
Specifically, pages 441 through 478 for those following along.
Exactly. And in this section, de Beauvoir, well, she really gets into the complex, often quite contradictory ways a girl journeys into womanhood.
Especially focusing on her emerging sexuality and the enormous societal pressure she faces. It's quite intense.
It really is. And she uses, a whole range of observations, societal examples to try and illuminate this really pivotal transition.
It's fascinating right from the get-go how she looks at the earliest forms of eroticism in girls.
Mm-hmm.
She points out it often starts in a clitoral way,
Mm-hmm.
almost like a source of pleasure similar to, innocent childhood games.
Right, like it's purely physical sensation at first.
Kind of, yeah. And crucially, it's not really connected, initially at least, to her future role as a woman, especially thinking about societal expectations around, well, sex and having children.
That focus on clitoral pleasure early on is interesting, isn't it? It sort of hints at maybe a societal discomfort with female sexuality that isn't just about reproduction.
Absolutely. That's a theme that, let's be honest, still sparks discussion today. De Beauvoir was really ahead of her time there.
Totally. So it's like this pre-sexual phase, purely exploratory, really.
Exactly. And she mentions how early on, maybe even in the first few months, there might be solitary practices.
Okay.
And society might view these differently for girls than boys, often because of, well, anatomical differences.
So the focus is more on those accidental discoveries, like maybe rubbing against clothing during play, that kind of thing.
Precisely. Stumbling upon sensations and then, quite naturally, seeking them out again.
The key thing, it seems, is that at this stage, the pleasure feels very autonomous, like it belongs just to the child.
And fundamentally innocent? Yes. But then, of course, things start to shift.
Right, that's the next phase she describes.
Absolutely. And de Beauvoir talks about this shift bringing about real emotional confusion.
How so?
Well, suddenly, a girl becomes aware of a heightened sensitivity, in various erogenous zones all over her body.
Okay.
And what's really striking is how these new feelings can be triggered by things that seemed completely innocent before,
Like what?
like a family member's caress, maybe just a casual touch, or even dancing with a boy. Things that were just normal suddenly evoke this deeper, more complex excitement.
Wow, yeah. Sometimes mixed with a kind of weariness, a lassitude, she calls it.
Exactly. It's like a whole new layer of sensation and feeling just gets switched on,
It does sound like seeing the world through a completely new lens. Everything feels different, charged somehow.
hmm And de Beauvoir, she doesn't pull any punches. She goes into the darker possibilities, too.
You mean the inappropriate experiences?
Yes, precisely. Those often hushed-up experiences. Inappropriate touches, maybe from family friends, uncles, cousins.
Even authority figures sometimes. Professors, priests, doctors.
Sadly, yes. The kind of thing that might be completely hidden in, conventional circles, but can leave a really profound and lasting mark.
Yeah, on a young girl's developing sense of her own body and how others might see it, you have to wonder about the long shadow those early experiences can cast.
And this is where that immense weight of societal expectation really starts to bear down.
Okay.
De Beauvoir talks about disturbing fantasies emerging, notably this recurring, obsessive idea of rape.
Which sounds terrifying. How does she interpret that?
Well, interestingly, not necessarily as a literal desire, more as a symbolic manifestation of internal conflicts and fears.
So not a wish, but a fear.
Kind of. Think about it, this recurring fantasy. Maybe it represents her dawning awareness of her vulnerability in a patriarchal world, where her body can be seen as something to be taken, not owned.
That makes sense. And these fears then surface in dreams as robbers, intruders, menacing figures.
Exactly. It's a powerful way to think about it as fear of violation taking root, just as she's becoming aware of her own sexuality.
And she even connects this fear potentially to a shift in the relationship with her father.
Yes, even if the affection is still there, there can develop this sort of disgust, she suggests, of physical revulsion. It's quite a stark and unsettling idea.
Definitely.
And building on that, she mentions a dream that psychiatrists apparently reported quite frequently back then.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
Young female patients dreaming they're being raped by a man, but, and this is key, with the consent of an older woman.
Wow. How does she read that?
Symbolically, she argues, it represents a desire for permission. seeking acceptance, maybe from a maternal figure, to embrace her own sexuality.
While also exposing the hypocrisy around it all.
Exactly. It's like seeking validation within a system that simultaneously condemns those very desires. A real catch-22.
Which leads right into that intense societal focus on a girl's purity and innocence, doesn't it?
Precisely. At the exact moment she's becoming aware of these mysterious disturbances of life and sex, as de Beauvoir puts it so well.
That pressure to be white like an ermine, as she says, and the restrictions on information on imagery related to sex.
It all clashes so dramatically with just natural human curiosity,
Yeah.
right? Especially a child's curiosity.
It's a real battle. Natural inclination versus this imposed expectation.
And the consequences of this repression, de Beauvoir argues, are pretty significant.
Yeah.
She suggests this constant self-denial, forcing yourself into this unrealistic ideal, can lead to a kind of devious, unhappy, even sickly demeanor.
Because those inhibitions get so deeply ingrained.
Right. Born out of shame and just a lack of understanding, they become incredibly hard to overcome later.
There's that underlying feeling she describes of being burdened by unspeakable faults.
Yes. Like the whole transformation into womanhood is happening under this cloud of shame and remorse. If I could ask, what does that kind of internal conflict do to a young woman's sense of self-worth?
It's heavy stuff. And to make it more concrete, she shares some really telling personal anecdotes, doesn't she?
She does. Her own experience with a doctor's inappropriate touch, for one.
And her father's reaction to her starting her period, just shocking, really.
The raw injustice she felt, being made to feel wrong just for a natural bodily function like menstruation. It really highlights that deep-seated shame around female physicality.
Those personal stories really hammer home the weight of her analysis.
And then there's that other anecdote about her and another girl sharing verses they found written on lavatory walls.
Right, which sounds a bit crude, maybe, but it highlights something important.
Exactly. It shows that stark conflict between the idealized romantic notions of love we're fed and the often vulgar, unspoken reality of sexuality.
That specific verse she remembers. What is love's highest aim? 4 buttocks on a stem.
Yeah. And her reaction, disgust, mixed with a sort of understanding, it just perfectly captures that jarring disconnect.
It's like the innocent fantasy hitting this crude physical reality head-on, leaving you feeling disillusioned, maybe with this secret illicit knowledge.
It really is such a vivid example, isn't it, of the fragmented, often distorted information girls were piecing together in secret.
Far from any supposedly guiding adult eyes.
And it just underscores that profound lack of open, honest talk about sex, leaving young women to navigate these massive feelings and experiences alone, often with shame.
Yeah.
So finally, de Beauvoir connects all these personal, physical, emotional changes of sexual initiation to that broader societal pressure.
The pressure for a girl to give up her childhood independence.
And become the inessential other, as she terms it. This transition isn't just biological, it's this fundamental, often painful shift in how she's expected to see herself and her place in the world.
No longer as a subject in her own right,
but as an object, primarily in relation to men.
It's this agonizing dilemma she paints. How do you reconcile your innate sense of self, that feeling of being an active person, with this overwhelming expectation to become passive, an object?
It's a huge internal struggle. And de Beauvoir depicts that wavering so well between desire and disgust, hope and fear.
A really profound internal conflict during this crucial time.
And she ends the chapter with that really resonant metaphor.
The bitter taste of unripe fruit.
Yes. Describing that uncertainty, being caught between childhood and womanhood, it perfectly conveys that sense of potential maybe being unfulfilled or a natural development being sort of stunted or tainted by all these pressures.
So wrapping up this part of our deep dive, it's just so clear that de Beauvoir saw sexual initiation as way more than just biology.
Oh, definitely. It's this incredibly complex mix of internal awakening, huge societal forces, and this dawning, often conflicted awareness of a totally shifting identity.
Which really leads us to a crucial question for you, the listener.
How do these insights, these historical and philosophical points about sexual initiation from, the mid-20th century, how do they resonate today?
With contemporary understandings, with the challenges people face coming into their sexuality now, have things fundamentally shifted?
Or are there still, perhaps, powerful echoes of these same internal conflicts and external expectations in modern life?
It's absolutely something to reflect on. We really do encourage you to delve further into the second sex if you haven't already.
And to consider the enduring, honestly profound impact of de Beauvoir's analysis on feminist thought and just our ongoing understanding of these deeply gendered experiences.
Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today.